Guys, I say it in plain words. Is the risk that Campi Flegrei is going to blow way higher, and are we way closer to that than the officials want to make us believe? You've probably seen my video where I said they're lying, because there were two scientists from the INGV, leading scientists, that are said what the officials are saying is not true in that way. So watch that video. But one of my viewers who lives in Italy, Laura, thank you so much. She pointed out that there is an article of a very, very seasoned scientist, and he says, I fear that we may be underestimating what is currently happening. And what is currently happening? There's a Brady seism currently happening. The land is rising. Earthquakes have been increasing over the last 1.5 years. But that Brady seism has already started in 2005. So what's going on? I want to read to you what Laura wrote me, because this is very, very important. So thank you for that. Then we want to look at the interview of this scientist, but also I want to tell you what other INGV scientists are publishing still. Again, pointing it out. I said it. I've said it since 2018. I said it again, and I said it again, and I said it again, and you're not listening. And Giuseppe de Natale, he says, I pointed it out just a few days before the magnitude 4.4 earthquake happened in 2024. So explosive material in this video. Let's start with Laura. So Laura wrote me that there's a TV interview with volcanologist Giuseppe Luongo, and he said that the INGV is underestimating what is happening to the Phlegreian fields. There are new phenomena that have never been seen before and that are not normal. There are double shocks at the same time at different depths, which suggest that the magma is close to the hydrothermal system. And the seismic swarm that occurred in the last few days was not a real swarm, but a very long seismic sequence formed by a set of many swarms in places in the caldera in various areas, very distant from each other. And it is something that is not normal and has never ever happened before. The INGV says that everything is normal, but it is not true. New things are happening that have never been seen and are very worrying and must be taken into great consideration. And Giuseppe Di Natale, leading scientist at the INGV, has said the same. He said, when the authorities are saying this has been normal, it has always been like this in Italy, it's not true. If the volcano awakens, there's these Brady seismic phases, but in between, there's evidence that the volcano has been silent for hundreds or thousands of years. So this happening is not normal at all. And more scientists are saying that. So who is Giuseppe Luongo? He's not some rogue, crazy scientist that is predicting doomsday scenarios. Giuseppe Luongo is a distinguished Italian volcanologist, and he's renowned for his extensive research on volcanic activity, and especially in the Campi Flegrei region in Italy. And he has served as professor of volcanology at the University of Naples, and he has been the director of the Vesuvius Observatory that is attached to the INGV. The Vesuvius Observatory is the world's oldest volcanology research center. So he has made significant contributions throughout his career to help people understand volcanic phenomena. He has written numerous research papers on topics like volcanic hazards, seismotectonics, and monitoring and modeling of active lavas. And his work has been instrumental in advancing the scientific community's knowledge of volcanic dynamics and the associated risks. And he has been the leading person, for example, in the 1970s, when there was a period of intense seismic activity at Campi Flegrei. He has played a pivotal role in monitoring the region, and his efforts were crucial during that 1970 Brady seismic crisis in Pozzuoli, where there was also a ground uplift and numerous earthquakes that did lead to an evacuation of residents from the Rione Terra neighborhood. So they were evacuated, and thankfully nothing happened, but they did evacuate. So what is he saying? Why is he saying that? Why is he saying we might underestimate what is currently happening. And the interesting thing is, guys, this is backed up by other scientists, Mastro Lorenzo, Di Natale, leading scientist directors of the INGV. So they're saying this, and they're also saying that if the government says we're monitoring the situation, yeah, monitoring does not guarantee safety. You understand that he tries to explain that we're monitoring that there's a volcanic eruption right now and you're all going to be, this is monitoring, right? They cannot predict in 10 hours there's going to be a volcanic eruption. There's signs that volcanoes give us, like land rise, fumaroles, more activity in fumaroles, and earthquakes, stuff like this. Does that ring a bell? So he's talking about that intense earthquake activity at Campi Flegrei that basically started February 9th. And then continuously, it was like so many earthquakes per day in the higher ranges. Didn't go up to 4.4 like it did last May, but so many. It was stunning, and it's just got less the last 2 days, but still we have earthquakes every day. But it has gone back to a pattern like something at Vesuvius, then at the Phlegrean fields. Vesuvius, scientists tell us we don't need to worry about that guy for now. But regarding the seismic swarm in recent days at Campi Flegrei, he says, Pozzuoli is the main area of activity. That's where the Solfatara is, the most active crater right now. So there where we have a lot of the epicenters. So he says we had a period of greater calm that started last August after the May period of unrest. But he says then a more intense phenomena resumed recently with a sequence of shocks that appeared somewhat unusual. That's why they're calling it a phenomena. Because what he says is these seismic shocks, they were coming in pairs. Meaning the seismicity would begin, pause, and then resume after a few days of calm. We've seen that, right? In between there was always Vesuvius and it was playing the ball back and forth. And he says that long sequence that has been lasting so long, some say this, the whole thing is a swarm, is probably not yet finished. And he says, what we're currently seeing, if this is a swarm, then it means the swarm should conclude after a period of seismic silence lasting several hours, maybe something like 3 hours. He says that's the general definition. But he says in the last 24 hours, the sequence has been continuous. So he says a swarm can mean different things. He says it seems that the shocks are somewhat spread out throughout the caldera. And that is true if you look at all the epicenters. Campi Flegrei spans around 100 kilometers on land and into the water. It looks like there has been bombs being gone off on the land, or asteroids or something like that. It's not like a stratovolcano like Vesuvius. So it spans a very large area, and because it hasn't been recognized as volcanic, it's so highly densely populated. So the earthquakes are spreading around in the Campi Flegrei area, also in the water where they just recently found another crater. So it could erupt in the water. That would be bad, because then it would also send a tsunami towards the coast of Pozzuoli and Naples. But let's hear what he has to say. So he says, because it's been spread out, this could not be just a single swarm, this could be multiple swarms. Happening, like one happening after the other, triggering activity in different points of the caldera, passing the torch to the next one. We kind of see something like this in Santorini, although that is purely magma involved, a magma intrusion that is happening. And then there's so many fault lines that are being lubricated by the magmatic fluids and then being triggered. So he thinks that instead of this being one single earthquake swarm, we could be dealing with probably in multiple swarms in different locations, and they are releasing energy. Is this a good thing that they release energy? I recently read something that Giuseppe di Natale has said about drilling, because they were thinking about drilling into Campi Flegrei, thinking that they could release some hydrothermal pressure there. He was warning of that. So let's say we do have multiple swarms in different locations releasing energy. So he says if this is the case, that means that there is a completely new situation. Completely new. And he says we have never seen this type of behavior before. And then he says, here it comes. So he also says what the other guys are saying. He says, however, when officials say that everything is normal, we must ask, what does normality mean? Normality is something that we have already seen. It's normal. But since we have never observed this kind of sequence before that we're experiencing now, it cannot be considered normal. And I think he has a very, very good point. What do you think, guys? What does he draw from this? He says this means we should deepen our understanding of what is happening. Yeah, because right now everyone's saying, yeah, that's the Brady seism. We had something like this in the 80s and the 70s. That's normal, not of concern. While the land is constantly rising and rising and rising, and also magnitude of higher magnitudes are being seen in the force. Of course, that's why he says, I think he hints they are not really understanding what is happening right now. So that's why he says you need to deepen the understanding. And then he says, we also need to verify whether there is greater cause for concern. He doesn't rule out that there is cause for greater concern. And I've reported it in my other videos. You should really watch those. That there are many parties involved. There's tourism, property values. We've heard of a developer that wants to build a hotel right by the Solfatara and says everything is normal. And when the civil defense guy spoke out and said we're not prepared for this at all, and he was only talking about the seismic risk, he said if there's a magnitude 5.1, the homes will collapse, and we will count the people that are lost. It was a big outcry. How can you say that? And that's psychologically and economically destroying us. We're putting billions into this new project, blah, 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 blah. And we've heard from residents that said, well, if they're putting billions into this project right next to the Solfatara where there could be an eruption, there's no danger, right? So we can stay. We don't need to evacuate. So there's fights going on right now. And I have a feeling that these INGV people are a little bit muzzled by the officials. You can't say that. Are you crazy? You can't release that. That'll kill everything. Tourism, development, money flowing in, raises panic, and then we evacuate, and then nothing happens. Yeah, that risk is always there. That's why Giuseppe di Natale has been saying since 2018, and he just recently has released on Facebook part of his letter that he wrote. I'll read it to you later. He's been saying since 2018, well, can we just gradually start moving people away from that red zone? The immediate red zone is probably like 700,000 people, and then the yellow zone is another million, and overall in this area we have over 6 million people. And he said gradually make them move away instead of then having them evacuate in a few hours in panic and then displace them to faraway provinces. So give them the possibility to move around within the area, but empty that red zone, empty the top of the volcano basically, which is tough. It's a beautiful, gorgeous area. It's absolutely stunning, historically so valuable, but so dangerous. And I'll get to this. They just found another eruption. We're always thinking, oh yeah, the last big eruption was like 40,000 years ago. Oops, they found something else. I'll also talk about this. But let's get back to our scientists here again. So verify whether there is greater cause for concern. That is already concerning that he's saying that. So he says two things should be considered first. The possibility of earthquakes greater than magnitude 4.4. 4.4 is what we had last May. And then the scientists after that said, wow, we could expect something in the magnitude 5 range. And he says, well, we should expect something, could expect something greater than 4.4 because we have seen multiple quakes close to this magnitude already, right? In some cases, there were even quakes of magnitude 4.2. So he said we should remember that every magnitude calculation comes with an error margin of plus minus 0.3. So he says that these two 3.9 that we just saw last week, above two 3.9 earthquakes, they could actually be with the margin of error a 4.2. They could have been. They were widely felt. People were really scared. They were running out on the streets again like they did last year. So he says it is possible that a quake could exceed that magnitude 4.2. He says, so the question is whether the energy is being contained within this region or not. So if this is the energy limit, then we should prepare for seismic events around 4.4 because we already had 4.4. But he says, if we then have a more intense earthquake above that, we completely must reconsider the possible risks. And he says, well, for now, the scientists are saying that the maximum earthquake that could occur in this area could reach magnitude 5.1, but we do not yet know how that value was calculated. Is this correct? It's just an estimated number. And he says, and a magnitude 5.1 quake would be quite strong for this region. That's what the civil defense said. And he said it bluntly because he was annoyed by all these people that wanted to put their head in the sand. So he said it. If right now this happens, we're counting the unalived. And you know, YouTube is stupid. You have to say that word. He says a surface level earthquake of this magnitude could cause serious damage because these earthquakes are all very, very shallow, so widely felt. And then we have increased amounts of gases that are being released right now. He says we must try to understand whether the gases that are being released right now are a result of seismic activity or if they indicate an increase in magmatic activity at a deeper depth. He says, something does seem to be happening. And he says some researchers believe that the gases being released could be a sign that magma is trying to move upwards. He's saying it. And he says, if the pressure decreases at depth, an event could occur. An event. We know what he means. But defining what exactly that event would be is difficult. He says one suggestion is to study these earthquake mechanisms more thoroughly, examining their temporal sequence and verifying whether they indicate an increase in deep activity from a magmatic perspective. He's giving people a warning. Look into this. Don't wipe it away as being normal. And he says, finally, we need to determine the appropriate responses to this situation at the surface level. What is the problem? Let's put aside the possibility of an eruption for a moment. That's what he's saying. He said an eruption would certainly be a later stage of this process. So for now, the main issue is the vulnerability of buildings in the affected areas. And he says, regarding the vulnerability of structures, I have not seen any results addressing this issue. We likely need more data. We do have acceleration measurements from seismometers, but we do not have all the necessary data. We need better information on how these ground accelerations is affecting the buildings. These are old buildings, stone buildings. Additionally, we must consider surface gas emissions and whether deeper structures are changing underneath. So his conclusion is, he says, in conclusion, all of this must be studied to determine whether the phenomenon, he calls it a phenomenon, guys, is evolving I fear that we may be underestimating what is currently happening. There it is, guys. And the people of Pozzuoli are currently marching on the streets, demanding answers from government officials. They're very angry. They're saying, we still don't have answers. Are our homes safe? We want to live in safety. We don't want to be hit by falling ceilings. We don't want to fall through holes in our ceilings. We don't want to be buried underneath our collapsed homes. We want proof, scientific, physical proof that our schools are really safe, not just someone that walks into the building and looks around. She said, static calculations, are these buildings safe? So they were really angry. You know, the Italians, they're like explosive, right? They're taking their politicians into account. They say, do something. They said to the mayor, you need to be there for the people. So guys, I got some coffee for this one, and maybe if you have one handy, take one too, and let's have a deeper look into this. Giuseppe de Natale posted the link to his whole letter and a news article to what he has published on Facebook. Unfortunately, I cannot open this link because I'm in Canada and our government is quite, I don't know how to name this. Censorship is great here. You can't get certain news here anymore, which is kind of sad. And I will research this. I will find the whole letter and I'll let you know this in a different video. I really feel like in the times in Germany when we had Eastern and West Germany, and Eastern Germany wasn't allowed to get certain news. This is how it's here. It's kind of crazy. I hope this is going to end soon. But Giuseppe de Natale says he posted a screenshot of the second part of his letter. And I want to read this to you because this also contains the most important points that he was trying to make. And he was writing this in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, and in 2023, again, just a few days before that significant event happened, the magnitude 4.4 earthquake. So he writes, I consider it my duty, my role as a researcher and public official, to submit the following. From our recent studies, some of which are about to be published, conducted in collaboration with Italian and foreign research groups, it appears extremely likely that seismic activity will progressively increase as ground uplift continues. He said that in 2018 the first time, and the study already had preliminary results about this in 2017. This increase will likely be more pronounced the closer we get to the ground uplift level of 1984. So the ground has risen significantly since then, since he published what he's just saying. So he says the period before the subsidence phenomenon that ended around 2003 began. So 2005, the current uplift period began. And he says our model specifically predicts that once the ground reaches the 1984 level, which is still several tens of centimeters away in 2018, not anymore, seismic activity will likely return to the same level as in 1984. Let us remember that was significantly higher than today. That was 2018. That has changed now, with magnitudes up to 4 and seismic rates exceeding 200 events per hour. That was a swarm of January 4th, 1984. But remember, it has escalated since then. And the caprock layer, since the 1980s, that keeps the lid on everything, has only a third of the strength left. So 1984, it was 3 times larger. So back in 2018, I want you to understand that. When we were away from being close to 1984, which we're not anymore at all. And that's current seismic storm is something they have never seen before. He was already ringing the warning bell. And he's frustrated because people didn't listen. And he says, the evolution of seismicity in recent years, with a marked progressive increase in both the frequency and the magnitude of earthquakes, perfectly aligns with the expected trend. I therefore believe that regardless of the limited destructiveness of the phenomena observed so far, back in 18, compared to the real damage potential of earthquakes, the implications regarding the probability of a possible eruption, the suitability of structures to withstand the activity, and the physical and psychological well-being of the population should be carefully considered. But it hasn't been considered. Social cohesion in urban areas remains one of the most significant factors at risk. And he further writes, the purpose of this letter is to direct in particular all activities aimed at mitigating the evident risk to the population and to social stability posed by a dramatic increase in seismic activity, even though it's not currently highly destructive. That was back in 2018. And now we hear, I've reported about this, several scientists saying we are not prepared at all. They did not start to prepare. They did not upgrade the structures. They did not start to maybe not give out building permits anymore, trying to make people move away. He was kind of helpless, writing this letter all over again. And he's very frustrated. And now he's posting on a daily basis now evidence. Basically, I told you so. I said that. And now the mess is here and we're not prepared. And then he finishes the letter. Taking into account all possibly implications of a potential eruption, which at the present time we do not yet consider highly probable, back in 2018, our attention, along with that of the entire scientific community, would be strongly refocused on this issue, the eruption, if the ground level continues to rise significantly beyond that of 1984, or its uplift undergoes a significant acceleration. It did. And then he says, best regards, Giuseppe di Natale. He's predicted what is currently happening. And there's another study that confirmed the rates of earthquakes and magnitudes is following the trend of uplift. So the question is, why is nothing happening? Who is trying to, I don't want to say cover this up, but trying to tamper this down so that there is not a big economic downturn on things or a panic or people freaking out even more. But as I just said, the residents of Pozzuoli, they are upset already. They're angry. How angry will they be if something happens, right? So guys, I found way more, but I don't want to make this video too long. So I'll put the other video where they lied, where I tell you what Giuseppe di Natale just has recently said. It's kind of scary. And what Mastro Lorenzo recently said. They're both from the INGV. So I have a feeling that officially they're all muzzled, but they're trying to peek a finger out of their hole, trying to warn the people. If you like this video, guys, please leave it a like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, guys, there's links in the description. You become a monthly member, or you can buy me more coffee on my buymeacoffee.com/silky website. Thank you for doing so. Thank you for your supers here and your support. I'll see you very, very soon. Check out the videos in the end screen, guys. A lot is happening. Stay safe. Bye-bye.